AITA for calling the police on my sister when she was just trying to help. I'm a 22-year-old female. My sister is 27. We had babies within 2 weeks of each other, and our sons are now 3 weeks and 5 weeks old. Her son is breastfed and mine is not. I needed to get surgery recently, and because my son's father isn't around, my sister and brother-in-law offered to babysit my son while I was in the hospital free of charge. When I came home today, I walked in to find my son on my sister's breast. I didn't have an issue with that initially because it was probably easier for her to breastfeed him than to make bottles. However, she told me afterward that she had thrown out all of the garbage I was feeding him and that she was going to pump and donate milk to him. I was kind of in shock, so I didn't react right away, but I went to the bathroom and called the police on her. Apparently, what she did wasn't a crime, and since the child is being fed, they couldn't do anything about it. My sister then blew up at me, saying it was completely wrong of me to call the police on her when she was just trying to help. I told her she dumped 14 cans of formula without even consulting me and currently had nothing to replace it with, just plans to do so. She now wants me to pay her for the babysitting she did, but I told her I can't even afford to replace the formula while I'm on maternity leave, so I won't be paying her for the babysitting. She ended up storming out and blocked me on everything. Our parents were able to replace 2 of the cans she threw out, but can't do much else. They also think I was a jerk for calling the police on her because getting a record could affect her government job and therefore my nephew. Am I the jerk? Edit, there's no way my sister would have replaced the formula. She is completely against it and has been vocal about her dislike for me using it. Edit 2. My sister did not have a supply already pumped, nor has she even used her pump yet. So not only did she not have anything to replace what she threw out, but she also had no idea how her body would respond to a pump. The only way she could have been feeding my son over the next few weeks would be to put him on the breast, which would take time away from me being with him. Edit 3. My sister went to my house for the child minding. User Drago the Dragon said NTA. She literally dumped hundreds of dollars worth of formula that you bought because of her own personal opinions on formula. I would have done the same thing in your situation. User Sug said NTA. That is a lot of wasted formula that she had no right to toss out. I am so sorry, OP. I will say my first reaction would not have been to call the police. Maybe you could have come to a solution together if you had talked to your sister first. This next post was made in the Surviving Infidelity subreddit by a user named Makers on the Rock. The post is titled, "My wife cheated on me without son's baseball coach. I've been married for 8 years and have 5 and 6-year-old kids. I've been madly in love the whole time as she's an amazing person and mother. She literally keeps the family together and is just spectacular, truly. She was showing me something on her phone when I saw a text come in that said, 'I love you more.' I asked who it was. She explained that it was a coworker she had been helping out, and I thought nothing more of it. That day, we had a lot of family over to celebrate our daughter's birthday, and it was a wonderful time. Some stayed overnight, so the next day, after a lovely weekend getting everyone out and putting the kids down, my wife said she needed to tell me something. Well, that 'I love you more' was not from her coworker. I'm not sure because she's not sharing any details regarding the other person. She told me that 6 months ago, when I was in a dark place, she found love in someone else. Love I wasn't providing in our relationship. If I have feelings for someone else, I'm not sure that I should be married. It's not fair to you or me. I never planned for this to happen, but now that it's a reality, we need to deal with it." She explained that she wasn't looking for someone else. It just happened. A friendship that bloomed into more. She's also told me that they have not been intimate and explained that as a sexual relationship. She says life is too short and that she wants to be happy. She's proud of all the changes I've made and I've always been a good dad, but I've grown into a great daddy and my kids and I have never been closer. But she wants to be 100% happy, and the changes I've made haven't gotten her there, so she's seeking happiness elsewhere. She says this person may not be the 100% answer. She worries that I'm at my best and it's still not enough, yet she's not giving me specifics. We've had a beautiful, loving relationship. We are known to be well put together and have our lives in order. We'd be the last couple people would think this is happening to. So I'm devastated, absolutely torn apart, and I don't know what to do. We own a house together for which we're making payments. I carry no debt besides said home, and she's in the same position. We had a perfect life together, and I'm suddenly being blindsided by this 6-month relationship where she has feelings for someone else and thinks it's best we split. I have no idea how to move forward. I've told her she needs to let her family know what's going on so I can tell mine. It's her cat to let out of the bag. I'm just so sad for our kids. kids. When we were dating and in marriage, cheating was the one thing that would break us. We both come from broken families, and it was something I never wanted for our kids. I just feel so hollow and broken. She was my everything, and I am so thankful for the 10 years we've been together. But I think the writing is on the wall, and I'm helpless. It's all up to her. I'm broken into a million pieces. Update. She was caught by me when a text came in at my daughter's birthday party that said, "I love you more." When I asked what that was about, she said it was from a coworker she had been helping. Because we had all our family and friends there, I didn't push it. Later the next day, she came clean and said that she had been in a relationship for 6 months. She refused to tell me who it was with or what they had done. I was devastated, absolutely destroyed. I still am. So we spent some time apart and she continued her relationship with him. In the meantime, I did some digging and looking at the phone records, I discovered it was our son's coach. I called her out on it and she still continued the relationship. I saw a lawyer who told me not to leave the house or the kids and to either try to work it out or consider leaving and seeing a therapist. My therapist says she's a narcissist and that I should protect myself, protect my kids, and run. Come December, she said she had cut it off with him and wanted to try again. I gave her all the effort in the world, but I don't feel like her heart has been in it. She's not overcompensating or has even truly apologized for what she's done. I've also gained access to her photos and she doesn't know that I've seen all I have. She framed a picture of him and had it on her desk. I found naked selfies she sent him that I haven't even received. I found a picture of his naked backside in our beach condo, which I thought was natural space since we weren't sharing it during our time apart. I slept on those same sheets. I know that she was at a fancy restaurant with someone else. She screenshots all these deep love quotes that I know aren't about me, so much of this lives rent-free in my head. She has a white bracelet with one black bead that she now wears every day. I've called her out on it. She lied once and said it was from her mom. Up until last week, she said her best friend has the matching one. However, her affair partner wears an all-black one with one white bead. I know what that represents. Again, she doesn't know I've seen all these things. So now to current day, I can't find anything that suggests she's still with him, but I know she uses Snapchat often and is secretive with her phone. Whenever I bring up the affair, it blows up because I said I'd try not to bring it up and get over it, but I simply can't. I'm not rubbing it in, but it does come up when we argue, which is almost every week. We do really well for a bit, including intimacy, but then something happens and we go back to being in conflict. She canceled our babysitter for trivia this past Tuesday and for this Friday when I got tickets for us to see a show. She doesn't want to go because I can't get over her affair. Her parents both cheated on their spouses for each other and support my wife. They both call and text me that it's unfair for me to bring up her affair. The pictures of him live rent-free in my head almost constantly. I can't get past what she's done no matter how hard I try. I don't know what to do as she's trying to make me the bad guy. I'm like, I've been here the whole time. I didn't fall in love with someone else. I just don't understand and am an emotional train wreck. Final update. Well, long story short, I literally just caught her at the family condo with the affair partner and have photos and videos of his truck, his belongings in the home, and her coming out of the master bedroom while he stayed behind a closed door. I also went into our shared car that she drove. It was left unlocked in the parking garage with an open high noon in the cup holder and her wallet and belongings still inside. She came home and tried to talk. It was a calm conversation, but she kept saying it was my fault, and that if I had communicated with her last night, maybe she wouldn't have been with him. So I communicated that I would be home later this afternoon or evening, so she's unexpectedly watching the kids today. I wanted to spend time with them as she took them away from me yesterday to do activities. I plan to do separate activities today, however, I'm not emotionally able to give the kids the best of me right now, and I definitely don't want to be around her. I asked if she could sleep in a kid's room and she got upset, stating that our bed is her bed and she will sleep where she wants. I said, obviously. I have already been for a 6-mile walk and have been calling and leaving voicemails at all the lawyers around. I know I can't abandon the home, but I can't be around them after what I saw this morning. Thank you to all who responded earlier this week and suggested Grey Rock and 180 for me. I implemented those strategies and I guess it drove her to this, but I'm officially divorcing her and there's no going back. Thank you so much. Edit and update. Legal counsel told me to have no contact with her, so that's what I'm doing. She texted me last night about how she hasn't asked for a second chance, even though I've given them, and that she loves me. She now says she's willing to go to therapy, share her location, and give access to her phone. She can't see herself rocking on the porch with me at 80. When I got home last night, she was in the master bedroom, so I slept upstairs. This morning, there was no communication. She wouldn't even look at me. Yesterday, when I caught them on video, I saw his hat and noticed it was from a local landscaping company. So I called to see if he worked there. He does. Okay, thanks. That was it. This guy just called me saying if I want to talk to him, here's his number. Don't call my boss. I said I have nothing to say to you. He replied that he has nothing to say to me and hung up. Also, her mom reached out and said how devastated I must be and that she's so sorry. She told me to call her when I have a chance. I'm going to continue my no contact with everyone and let my lawyer do all the talking. This is so damn hard. User Bigwig Mike said, why would he give her a second chance after she left him for months to be with this guy? Also, why did she even bother coming back if she was still with the affair partner? User Not Your Mom said, this woman sounds insufferable. The beach condo, no debt, and other hints make me believe her attempts at reconciliation are about her wanting to maintain a standard of living she's been accustomed to. To be fair, he says they had the perfect relationship, but mentions a dark time where she claims the initial interest outside the marriage. This makes me wonder if we're getting the full picture here. A deleted user said, my guy handled it more viscerally. He went to a practice, called out the coach in front of his colleagues and a whole bunch of parents. The coach saw that his career was in jeopardy and reacted by throwing a punch. He was stretchered off and required physiotherapy. The coach was immediately terminated, tongue started flapping, and WW's life went down the shitter as well. The unintended consequence? She became a pariah, begging my guy to take her back to rehabilitate her image. Nope, he started dating. This last post was made in the AITAH subreddit by a user named Ant in Agony. The post is titled AITA for taking my biological nieces on days out and excluding my adopted nephew. Throwaway. I have two nieces, Flo and Ivy, and a nephew, Ryan, through my brother Tom and sister-in-law, Kate. Flo and Ivy are biologically theirs, and they adopted Ryan 2 years ago after fostering him for 3 years. I live locally to them, we are super close usually, and I have my own daughter Ava who my nieces are close to. Before foster care, Ryan's life was awful, and he has some behavioral and developmental issues. He struggles to sit through long events such as shows or the girls' plays or recitals, so the girls rarely have both parents supporting them. His behavior is sometimes pretty unpredictable, and he occasionally has loud and physical meltdowns, so they have to be careful about where they take him. As such, whenever my husband and I take Ava to the theater or other activities that Ryan wouldn't enjoy, we bring the girls along too. Sometimes Tom and Kate pay for them, sometimes we do. We have never taken Ryan out without his parents and sisters because he has really different interests from the girls. I don't feel confident handling his behavior, and Flo and Ivy have expressed that they really value the Ryan free time. I've made extra effort to be there since then. Ryan's a great kid, but he needs a lot of attention, and my nieces need people who are 100% in their corner. Anyways, I am taking the girls to a Christmas theme park in London on Friday. It's quite an expensive one, and I have the joy of footing the bill for all three. On Sunday, I got a call from Kate asking if Ryan could come with us on Friday. He had seen advertisements and heard the girls talking about it, and he wants to go. She offered to pay for whatever he did. I told Kate no, as I didn't know how he would handle crowds. She said he went 2 years ago and loved it, and his sisters were there to help him if he struggled. I said that wasn't fair to them. I booked it as a girls' trip and it is supposed to be a treat. I don't want it getting cut short, and I don't feel comfortable parentifying the girls. I know Tom is taking Ryan to London next week, so I told Kate to book tickets for that day, but by that point, she wasn't listening. She criticized me for insinuating that siblings caring for each other was parentifying me and accused me of being ableist since Ryan can't help his conditions and shouldn't be excluded, as well as being biased against the kid I'm not related to. It got very heated and ended with me saying to read the room. It's a girls' day, and her hanging up. Anyways, she went to the girls and said either they ask me for Ryan to come or they can't go. Flo texted me begging me not to let him come and asking if they can still join us, while Ivy is more torn because she doesn't want her brother to be left out, but also doesn't want to risk her day being ruined. My mother, Tom, and sister have contacted me saying I should bring Ryan so as not to show favoritism and to be inclusive. My husband is on my side. Edit to answer a few questions. Tom, Kate, and my husband are all working the day of the trip. I took PTO while Kate and Tom had childcare arranged. I do spend quality time with Ryan. We live a 15-minute walk away, so we go to their house often. Ryan, Tom, and I build a lot of Lego together since it's a shared hobby. I get him a new set every birthday and Christmas. It's a running joke since he spends a lot of time guessing which one it will be. I enjoy this quality time as it's accessible with his parents around. However, I just booked days out around my daughter's interests, which happen to be the exact opposite of his. She's a really artsy girly girl who likes theater, shopping, museums, movie nights, and slumber parties while he's into Lego, video games, and anything martial arts related. Thank you to everyone who commented. I'm currently on a break at work, so I'm going to quickly update. Shit has hit the fan, basically. I removed the previous update as I was too sleep deprived to do the title properly. Your comments made me realize that I am right not to bring Ryan. It's not safe with just me, and especially after reading comments from people who have special needs children or siblings who have had to pull all their kids out of outings due to not having enough adults. I'm not doing that. The girls also deserve to do the things they want. I will also make a conscious effort to do things with Ryan. I'm going to suggest to Tom that he and I take Ryan to Legoland when it reopens in the spring. A recap of characters: me, my daughter Ava, my brother Tom, his wife Kate, and their kids Flo, Ivy, and Ryan. The new players are my husband Ben, our sister Mia, and my mum, who we will just call Mum. Because of the character limit, I couldn't elaborate on a few things. I do spend quality time with Ryan, I just don't take him on outings. We both love Lego, which Ava doesn't, so it's great to have someone to bond with over that. Since we live a 15-minute walk away, we see each other quite often, usually at their house as it's easier to shepherd one kid rather than three. Sometimes he'll choose to hang out with the girls where they will play an activity they all enjoy, like Mario Kart, but most of the time he'll prefer to hang out with me. He is one of those kids who thrives when hanging out with adults rather than other children, which is why his parents endorsed the girls' days out. It meant they get 2-to-1 time with him. He gets along with his sisters as they are both super calm and kind girls. But most of his meltdowns arise from confrontations with other kids, or when his sisters want to do something he doesn't like. Some examples include Flo playing music in her room or them picking a movie he doesn't want to watch. Obviously, when they do a vote, the girls' picks usually win since there are 2 of them. He gets stressed out a lot by other kids at school. Kate and Tom encourage the girls to be empathetic and let him have his way, but I think this means the girls sometimes lose out. He has some friends at school with whom he has frequent playdates, especially when the girls are out of the house, and he's friends with Mia's 2 sons who are 10 and 8. He sometimes gets invites to go laser tagging with them, but they live slightly further away, and since it's on weekends, Tom or Kate are always there because they have to take him. Back to the story. Ben walked Ava to school today, and Flo and Ivy go to the same school. Flo was waiting by the gates and asked to talk with him after Ava went in. She basically said that she loves her brother but really values having days out with me, Tom, and Ava because it's calmer. When they went to Winter Wonderland 2 years ago, he was chill for about 4 hours, but they ended up leaving earlier than planned because he was starting to get cranky with all the queues, and they didn't want to risk meltdowns there. Although they started with the rides he wanted, they had only done 1 or 2 that the girls wanted and didn't get to do the ice skating, which is what she really wanted. She also mentioned that when the family went to a restaurant recently, Ryan threw a fit because the food was taking too long and he was hungry. Tom took him home, and while the girls were trying to chat with Kate, she was too busy on her phone trying to message Tom to see if Ryan was okay. I have also noticed that the girls are at my house a lot lately. Since they are responsible for walking themselves home, they will often come to my place to do homework as it's empty otherwise until I get home at 5:30. Ivy and Ava are in the same class, so they do homework together. Flo often chats a lot with me and Ben, usually about gossip and what happened at school. I thought nothing of it, but now I wonder if she even has those chats with her parents. While Flo and Ava are both pretty headstrong and confident, Ivy is sensitive, and I think her mom saying she's excluding her brother really gets to her. Ben relayed this to me, and I contacted Tom to tell him we need to meet. He works long hours, but agreed to swing by my place after work to hash out the issues. While Kate is lovely, she thinks with her heart. I think Tom is more level-headed. At the moment, he's on Team Ryan, but I hope that when I lay out why that is not possible, he will see the light. This morning, I also received a text from my mum and Mia, both on Kate's side. My mom has a history of favoring her son over her daughters, and she said that Tom was valiant for adopting Ryan and that it was my duty as the local family member to ensure he was accepted as much as possible. To those who said to send her along, I wish. I also found out that she and my dad booked a last-minute flight to get some winter sun for a few days. Mia was more level-headed but still on their side, saying I needed to keep the peace because we don't want a scrap just before Christmas. However, when I mentioned that she organized things without the girls, she got quiet. I also found out that she is the designated babysitter for Ryan that day, so I think she might be trying to pawn him off on me so she doesn't have to come over. She lives a 45-minute drive away. She and her kids are driving down to hang out with Ryan at his house and in the local area since Kate works in our town and is close by in case of an emergency. I was thinking about asking my sister if she and her boys wanted to come along, but since her boys are younger, I would be worried about the girls being overshadowed. I'm not sure we can manage 6 kids between the two of us at Winter Wonderland. Her youngest also does not meet the height requirement for many of the rides the girls want to go on since he's pretty short for his age. It would also take away from the girls' day. They've really talked a lot about it, and I don't want them feeling awkward about doing something because Ryan doesn't want to. Maybe we can come again next year when we have all 6 parents available for more flexibility, but for now, I think it's safest to go with the girls only. I am slightly concerned that with the way Kate is behaving, she might tell Mia not to come and drop all 3 kids at my place on Friday. However, Ben says he will babysit if need be. Ryan really likes him, and I think he would prefer playing on Ben's PS5 to going to the theme park anyway. I don't want it to come to that, as it's cruel to tell the kid he can't come when he's at my door, but I wouldn't know what else to do. I am pretty nervous about how my brother will react, especially to Flo talking to Ben, as I really don't want to fight or for her to get in trouble. I'll mention what she said, but avoid anything that could start a conflict. Ben told her to speak to her parents too, so that may be happening, but I think it would just be her since Ivy is very timid and doesn't want to make her parents sad. I don't want to be cut off from my nieces, as I love them a lot and know they love their cousin. I really want to resolve this. Any advice would be appreciated. User Anne Boleyn said, I'm the eldest and parentified daughter with a profoundly disabled youngest brother, and I used to wish so hard for a family member to come and do special things with me and my sister so that we didn't spend every single day catering to his needs. Those parents are going to want to rely more and more on their daughters as they grow up, and they will be bewildered when the daughters don't want to be used. User Prancing Red Pony said, parents with special needs children tend to forget that their normal children are still children and have needs too. I mean, the full range of needs any child has, which are no less important than the needs of the special kid. They forget that a special needs child has more needs on top of their own, not that the others have lesser needs. I volunteered to help with the organization of a special needs charity that offers family holidays to families with disabled children. The special aspect of this program is that there are experts organizing activities where medically and psychologically trained staff care for the special needs kids, allowing the parents to focus on their other children. Their time wouldn't be occupied with booking specific accommodations or separating because one parent had to stay or go back with the disabled child. This way, they could spend as much time as possible together. If the child with special needs had to leave early, the therapy nurse would accompany them back, and the parents could finish the planned activity so the other kids wouldn't miss out. It's important for parents to try as hard as they can not to burden their healthy kids, or they'll feel punished for being healthy. I ran into my ex-wife's sister at the store. After catching up, she asked me on a date. I have mixed feelings. Quick background. My ex-wife is the same age as me, and I have not seen her since we divorced 3 years ago. There was nothing juicy about the divorce, just 2 kids who got married too young, too soon, and realized it too late. We divorced pretty amicably, and she ended up moving away. I did as well for a time, but I came back home last year. I had no idea what my ex was doing and didn't really care. I got along with her family until the end, although I did not know her sister that well since either we were in college or she was in college. However, I had met her several times and had a cordial relationship with her. I never felt any weird vibes while married to her sister. My ex was not really close with her sister, but they also did not have any ill will toward each other. Anyway, Riley told me that my ex is engaged and happy, which I was actually glad to hear. She said her parents are doing well and even asked her a little while ago if she knew what I was doing, which she didn't because I don't keep in contact with anyone from her family. We do have some mutual friends, but I don't think Riley really knows them that well. It was a nice conversation. Before we finished talking, Riley asked me if I would like to have a drink with her sometime. I thought maybe she just wanted to catch up in a better setting, but then she said, "But I understand if you don't want to go on a date with your ex-wife's sister, so it's a date." I ended up exchanging numbers with her and lightly asked how her parents would feel about it. She replied, "They would probably be happy that I found someone they liked." I figured I'd rather have the number and not use it than wonder if I should have gotten it. I guess I was also just happy that an attractive woman asked me for my number. She did mention in our conversation before she asked me out that she was always surprised that her sister let such a good guy go, which I corrected by saying it was definitely mutual, not all on my ex. Riley is very pretty and I enjoyed talking to her. I like her family. If I had just run into her as a stranger without any history, it would have made my day to have been asked out like that. But I keep thinking that it's weird. She's obviously a grown woman now, but she was a teenager when I started dating my ex-wife. I would feel strange going to her parents and saying, "Hey, I've decided to give your other daughter a try." Then there's the question of how my ex would feel about it. Would it ruin her relationship with her sister? If we got serious, I'd have to see my ex at functions, which doesn't bother me that much but is still odd, you know? Then I get these intrusive thoughts like, is this my unconscious trying to make my failed marriage seem like a success? What if Riley has the same tendencies that made my ex and me incompatible? But then again, I'm also not being fair to Riley. Riley has a great family. She seems to have her life together and was enjoyable to talk to. I feel like I'm allowing my past to throw away a potentially great partner. I don't know, I'm really confused. Edit 1, I can't post an official update yet, so here's the best I can do. I have read through your comments, taken my lashings from some, and received some weird, creepy personal messages from others who, as one person put it, understood why I wanted to knock boots with my ex's sister. In fact, it was the creepy pro messages that actually changed my mind more than the people telling me not to go on the date. I texted Riley and told her that I don't think it is appropriate for us to go on a date. I said that I enjoyed talking to her and catching up, but that we should only be cordial if we see each other out. Nothing more. Maybe I shouldn't have said this, but I also told her that it was nothing personal against her. She seems like a really great person, but given my history with her sister, it just isn't appropriate. She replied that she understood and respected my decision, but also said that she didn't think my ex-wife would have a problem with it. However, I was steadfast and reiterated that I still don't think it's appropriate. I also learned a lot about myself here. If you read some of my comments, you might have seen this, but I'll try to summarize. I miss being a husband. I miss being in a loving marriage. I don't miss my ex-wife, but I miss what we once had and want that again. I didn't know I felt that way, at least consciously, until I spoke to Riley. I think her being my ex-wife's sister brought out some feelings in me that were never unlocked by the women I dated in the interim because they were detached enough from my previous marriage that I could still repress those feelings. I didn't realize how lonely I was and how much I craved having a woman to come home to, not just to receive love, but to give it. I think I focused so much on my career and other things in my life that I buried those feelings after my divorce. Finally, call me dumb, naive, oblivious, emotionally unintelligent, etc. But I'm not a bad person and I never intended to destroy anyone's relationships. I also wasn't thinking about sex. If you see some of my replies, I didn't even consider some of the conundrums involved. I was thinking with a heart that confused scar tissue with being healed. As for Riley, I don't know what her intentions were, and at this point, I don't care. I'm not going on that date with her. I'm going to talk to a professional about my unresolved love issues. Thank you to everyone here for opening my eyes, even if you were a jerk, except for the person who basically accused me of being a PDO, you can screw off. Edit 2, I'm going to bed. I've been up way too late with this. I've tried to respond as best as I can. For those who didn't even read the whole thing, I don't care about your opinion. For those who did and offered constructive feedback, even if I didn't like it, thanks for your input. This has blown up so much. I'll give you all an update if anything else of note transpires. User Atomic Poetry said, many moons ago, during my high school days, my older sister dated a guy who enjoyed the same video game as I did. We would chat about it for hours whenever I saw him, but our relationship was purely platonic. They broke up after a while. 5 years later, I met him again at a convention. He asked me out, but I declined. When I told my sister, her response was, I knew he broke up with me because he was in love with you. That was over 25 years ago, and she still mentions it at Christmas, calling me a boyfriend stealer. Today, she's happily married and has kids. OP, don't do it. User the Dissolutionist said, politely decline because this is a chaotic mess in the making. Don't think with your dick, chief. User Linzava said, you know how when you're watching one of those movies where the main character keeps making decisions that lead to unnecessary drama, despite little motivation pushing them toward those choices, you're screaming at the TV screen not to do it? That's exactly what you're doing here. You even stated that you barely know her. Why? Just leave it alone unless you enjoy stirring up trouble for fun. She doesn't know you that well either, so she's either up to something or she loves drama. If you say yes, that means you love drama too. Update. Okay, wow, good God, this became a whole mess. I really believed I was being optimistic thinking my previous post might get 50 comments. It's like 2,000 now or something. I think it was #1 on the page for an entire day. I saw the damn thing on YouTube, for God's sake. And the worst part is that some internet Reddit tabloid covered it in detail. I didn't even know that was a thing. I have never felt so out of touch and dumb. I'm in a much better headspace now. If I had written this last week, it would have been pretty dark. A lot has transpired in such a short period of time, so I will do my best to keep it chronological, but if I jump ahead or lose track, forgive me. I'm not going to recap anything from my last post. Go back and read it if you want. Also, I'm sure you all assumed this, but all of these names are fake. The post wasn't, but boy, I wish it were. Just to be clear, I'm going to use a lot of quotes. These are to the best of my recollection. I didn't have a stenographer. I also sent this to everyone and got permission from all to post it. I want to give a shout out to all the commenters and the people who DM'd me. I did not respond to any of you. I don't know, I wanted to keep some distance from this getting more personal than it already is, but I read them and appreciated them. I especially appreciated those of you who also missed being a wife or husband. You were seen and heard, and it made me feel less alone there. Thank you. Finally, I may be dumb, but good lord, some of you are just depraved. I may have some work to do, but some of you are the worst. After the post got swamped, I went out and bought some beer because I was kind of freaking out. I drank almost an entire 12-pack, and I'm not a drinker, so that does a number on me. 2 beers get me pretty buzzed. I think I was up until 1 in the morning or something. I ended up calling off work because I was very tired and hungover. I also read some of my comments and realized that I was kind of a jerk in some of them. I was drunk. I'm not a mean drunk, but I guess I was feeling pretty exhausted and thought, F it. I owe some of those people an apology. The next day, I got a text from Riley with a link to the post. Now I know what it's like to have a bowling ball dropped on your stomach. My divorce was such a slow burn that I never experienced that gut-punching feeling, at least not to this level. Maybe gut-punching is too mild. I should have said cannonball to the face. I'll spare you the entire text conversation, not for your sake, but for mine. Apparently, Riley is no stranger to Reddit, and she was gobsmacked when she read my post and immediately knew it was me. I finally called her, and the first couple of minutes involved crying and tongue lashings, although not as bad as I was anticipating. I tried to explain to Riley that I did not think the post would blow up like that, and that I was genuinely confused about the situation. It felt like there was no one to talk to about it. I apologized profusely, and thankfully she calmed down a bit so we could have a civil conversation. Riley told me that she wasn't overly upset with me and she understood why I made the post. She admitted that asking me out was a stupid thing to do. What really hurt her was how many people thought she was trying to undermine or cause pain for her sister, which she assured me and asked me to assure everyone was absolutely not the case. However, she acknowledged that looking back on it, she understood why people might have felt that way. It really hurt her to see people say such nasty things about her, and I have to admit that it hurt me too. However, I also have to acknowledge that so many people said it that it caused some doubt in me. I'm now kind of ashamed of that. Riley is not a bad person, and I'll provide more on this in a bit. Riley called me after she had spoken with her sister, my ex-wife Julia, to do some damage control. She basically begged and pleaded with Julia not to be mad at her. Julia, to her credit, handled it very well. A lot of these conversations are pretty redundant, so I'm trying to condense them as best I can. A quick aside, what a lot of you don't understand is that we are all human beings here. I think many people take the worst example of someone they've heard about in different posts and project that person's motives or demeanor onto someone like Riley. What some of you also don't understand is that my ex-wife Riley, her family, and I have a lot of history, 99% of which you do not know about, nor do you have any idea what the dynamics are. You oversimplify these situations without nuance. I get it. You were working with what I gave you, but maybe try not to completely criticize someone you don't know or assign nefarious motives to them because you read a horror story about a different person in another post. I will explain this in more detail, and hopefully some of you will understand that Riley is not a bad person. She was not trying to compete or get one over on her sister. In fact, the person who advocated against these ideas the most was her sister, my ex-wife. Riley and I eventually had a good conversation. I told her that I understand if she's angry with me and never wants to see or hear from me again, but to my surprise, she said that she had mostly forgiven me. Despite how hurtful many of your comments were, it did sink in that what she did was a little messed up. We had a moment of commiseration when she mentioned that when people brought up things about the two of us that were explicitly sexual, she hadn't gotten that far in her mind either, and reading those comments was as jarring for her as it was for me. We both laughed about how naive we were not to even consider that aspect of a potential relationship. No offense, she said to me, but the more I think about it, the grosser I realize it is. I'll get into this more in the next conversation, which involved Riley telling me that Julia wanted to call and talk to me. In my mind, I gulped, but figured I deserved it from both barrels, so I told her that I was okay with that. After we hung up, maybe 5 minutes later, I received a text from an unknown number. However, it was made clear in the message that it was my ex-wife. She said she wanted to talk to me face to face, but since she lived 2 hours away, she couldn't just drive up here. She suggested Skype or Zoom, and I agreed to that. The only condition on her end was that her fiancé, Tom, would be listening in on the entire conversation, but she assured me that Tom mostly wanted to stay out of it. She explained that the only reason for this was that she was not comfortable having a conversation with her ex-husband behind her fiancé's back, which I understood. A couple of hours later, I fired up the laptop and got on Skype. There on the call was my ex-wife. She hadn't changed much at all, though her hair was lighter than I remembered. I had not seen or spoken to this woman in 3 years. Looking back, and to my delight, while it was a bit surreal to be talking with her, I did not experience any flood of feelings when I saw her. I didn't have any "oh my god, I still love her" revelations. Thank God, because after everything that had transpired, I was no longer sure of myself about anything. But there she was in the screen flesh. I wasn't sure I would ever see her again after our divorce. When she saw me, she smiled and waved. I think there was a hi or something like that. Then she leaned into the screen. "You're an idiot." I put my hand over my eyes and groaned. Thankfully, I could hear her giggling. I finished my game of peekaboo to see her smiling and shaking her head. She called her fiancé over and introduced me to him. Tom seemed in good spirits. He was a handsome guy. I apologized to him and assured him that I wasn't here for anything underhanded. He put up his arms and said, "The less I'm involved, the better." I almost left this part out because I'm already chapped enough that some people think this is fake, and it seems like a creative writing comment, but screw it, I don't care. Tom, with a sly grin, said, "I asked Julia if I should thank you for divorcing her, but she didn't think that was funny." She slapped his shoulder and replied, "Do you want to sit on the couch now or sleep on it later?" Tom leaned in and said, "Nice meeting you," before scurrying off. Julia told me that he didn't want to be a part of this and that it was actually her insistence he listen in. What followed next was a bit of a whirlwind. I'm going to do my best here to summarize. Full disclosure, there are going to be some things relating to why we divorced that I am not going to include here because it isn't for any of you. But I can say that regarding those conversations, I never realized how much I would value the closure I got from them. First, regarding Riley, not only was Julia not angry with Riley, but she also said she wasn't even surprised. I was taken aback by this. It's not that Julia didn't blow her top. That isn't very surprising since Julia is pretty good at regulating her emotions, but to say she almost expected it was something I wasn't anticipating. I started to wonder if Riley hadn't been honest with me, if some of you were correct that there was some weird sibling rivalry thing going on here, and I almost wish there were because the truth was even more difficult for me to process. Julia said that had Riley done this immediately after our divorce, she would have slapped her silly, but having a few years away from the divorce allowed her to process what was going on. In the end, I discovered things about both Julia and Riley that I never knew. I feel like it will make more sense if I start with Julia. She had read the Reddit post, including all of my comments. She said I might be surprised to learn that she had already gone through the same emotions I was experiencing, and this was not a small part of the reason she wanted to talk to me. Despite everything, she cared enough about me to want me to find happiness, and I know I expressed the same about her in my last post. She mentioned that a couple of months after our divorce was finalized, she went through a brief period where she thought she had made a terrible mistake. She had moved away, didn't have as many people to talk to, and became very depressed and lonely. She said that one time was so bad that she had a panic attack while discussing it with one of her friends, and if not for the old paper bag breathing technique, she would have hyperventilated. She also nearly reached out to me to ask if I would take her back. Her friend insisted that she get into therapy, which she did, and she discovered that it was not me she missed. It was having a companion. She encouraged me to seek therapy as well because she said it enabled her to move on. After reading what I had written, she felt it was deja vu and wanted me to know that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. She had obviously told Tom all of this well before we had that conversation. I'm also only typing the next part because I can already hear "Run, Tom, run" in the comments. Julia asked Tom if he was okay with her sharing this with me, and if not, we would stick to discussing Riley. But Tom said that she might as well get it all out there. After reading my post, he felt bad for me. We talked about our divorce. As I mentioned, a lot of what we discussed I'm not going to share. However, I noted in my last post that sometimes Julia would be okay with something even when she wasn't. She admitted that she had a problem doing this and has worked on it since. She and Tom communicate much better now, and our problems were not entirely my fault. She said that she could be a bit jaded and cynical, but also acknowledged that for my part, I was entirely too naive and optimistic about everything. She said she loved how positive my outlook was and how I always saw the best in everything and everyone when we were first together. But eventually, as she put it, when we got out of college and life happened, there were moments where she felt I was almost dismissive of her feelings because I held on to the mantra of everything will work out in the end. If she had an issue with someone, she felt my optimism made it seem like I was taking that person's side. Are you sure they meant it that way? She said that sometimes she just wanted her husband to be mad with her and not try to play peacekeeper. She also pointed out that I was, and I'll own this, many of you saw it firsthand, awful at picking up cues. I won't forget this line. My parents' dog could tell I was upset and you couldn't. Do you understand how frustrating it is when you have to spell everything out for your husband? Do you know how exhausting that is? She explained that even when she did try to communicate clearly, I was too caught up in trying to find every little silver lining that I became tone deaf to her feelings. Finally, regarding this, she accepted some responsibility. My biggest mistake was never spelling that out to you. I tried to spare your feelings too many times, and in doing so, I was putting a band-aid on an amputation. She said that part of what prevented her from doing that was her feeling that I was such a pure soul that conveying her true feelings would somehow corrupt me, that I would become jaded and cynical like her. That was really hard to hear, but I needed to hear it. Some of you suspected that I was almost childishly oblivious, and you weren't entirely wrong. In fact, I think I was pretty curt with someone over that, and to some extent I probably owe them an apology, although I still don't think their particular critique was entirely in good faith. If I'm wrong about both of those things, then I'm sorry, and believe me, I apologize to her as well. On to Riley. Julia said that Riley and I were actually a lot alike in that respect. Riley, in her opinion, was also naive and trusting to a fault. I learned some things here as well. Apparently, Riley looked up to me as a husband way more than I ever realized. Julia said she always knew Riley had a little crush on me. Not in the sense, according to Julia, that she wanted me for herself, but she always enjoyed being around me. Julia suspects that because we share some similarities in our personality traits, Riley pictured someone like me as the ideal husband. When Julia and I were around people, we really were the perfect couple. People were very surprised to hear about our divorce because all of our problems were internal. We did not fight in public or around anyone else. Also, since Riley did not see us all the time, she was getting a very truncated version of our marriage, which always looked great. Julia said that Riley would talk about how nice and funny I was, how well I treated her, and how she knew Julia could trust me. Even in our rocky stages, Julia never had the heart to tell Riley that it eventually became a facade. Julia admitted this was also a mistake. She wanted Riley to view me in that way with the hope that she would find a nice guy herself. If Riley learned about my flaws, she might feel like her picture of a good man would be shattered and end up with someone who treated her poorly. Julia told me that while a guy like me turned out not to be right for her, he would probably be great for her little sister because her sister was always bubbly and optimistic like me. She even gave me an anecdote. Riley was dating a guy in college who did something pretty shady, and Riley asked her, would OP do something like that? Julia told her that I wouldn't. The next week, when Julia spoke with Riley again, she found out Riley had dumped him. I asked her if she really thought that had something to do with it. Julia laughed and said, "You still don't get it." I guess I can see what she was saying. Someone in the last post kind of called all of this. Julia said that Riley has since had some extremely toxic relationships because, as she said, Riley was easy to take advantage of. She always tried to make the best of everything, which at times made her a bit of a doormat. Julia warned me that I was susceptible to this as well and that I was lucky to have avoided it. Her guess was that Riley saw me, and between her picture of me as this perfect husband and her string of bad relationships, she felt that dating me would ensure she finally had the good husband she always wanted. Julia felt that Riley was so excited to find Mr. Right that she did not even think about what dating her ex-brother-in-law might entail. She chalked it up to Riley having tunnel vision or horse blinders. Julia laughed while telling me that during her conversation with Riley, she was somewhat shocked at how little her sister had thought it through. She said that even I, in my post, had considered things that had not sunk in for Riley. She also chastised me a bit. She hated the line in my post, "My ex-wife and her sister were not that close." Julia said this was another glaring example of how oblivious I was since she felt that she and Riley were always very close sisters. She said it was even out of character for me to believe that, as my default would be to think everyone was best friends. I told her that I knew they texted but didn't hang out a lot, to which, "My God, what an idiot I am," she replied, "She was going to college a few states away, you dumbass. When were we supposed to hang out?" She pointed out that I even mentioned that in my own damn post. I really am a man baby. Haha. No wonder she divorced me. So maybe Riley and I should date after all, right? No chance. Haha. Julia said that while if she really thought it would be best for Riley, she could accept it. She wouldn't like it, but she could accept it. Julia said I badly needed therapy, so did Riley for that matter, and I guess that's underway. But Julia felt like we would just enable each other's naivete. While this is harsh, she said our relationship as is would become so juvenile that eventually when either of us needed the other to be the adult in the room, we would not be capable of providing that for one another and we both would probably become bitter and resentful. She felt that while Julia and I were incompatible because we weren't alike enough, Riley and I would never work because we were too alike. She said that she and Tom were alike enough to share many of the same interests and understand each other's needs, but they had enough differences to complement one another and introduce new or different dynamics to the relationship to help it mature and grow. She felt like Riley and I would experience a honeymoon phase followed by a crash and burn, not a slow burn like Julia and me, but a ticking time bomb. She believed it would quickly stagnate. She also said that selfishly, on her end, she feared if things between me and Riley didn't work out, Riley might resent her. I asked about my mill and Phil. I'm not going to say X because that's just tedious and what they would think. Julia said she felt if she gave an enthusiastic blessing, they would probably be happy for us. However, she was not capable of doing that. Therefore, Emile and Phil would likewise not be happy with the relationship because they would hate the tension it could cause between their two daughters. She said one thing I wasn't wrong about was that her father and mother thought very highly of me. However, she told me once again that I was only focusing on the best case scenario and seemed oblivious or aloof to the harmony they would obviously want regarding their two daughters' relationship with one another. In my last post, I did come to that realization, though I can't say I did it alone. I was also told by Julia to put this in the post. I know my sister better than you do, and I know that while what she did was ill-conceived, she didn't mean me any harm. If you want to continue to believe that she did, knock yourself out. Julia also wanted me to mention that she does not believe I groomed Riley in any way, and she knows I never cheated on her physically or emotionally. She even joked, if some woman ever wanted you to cheat, you probably wouldn't even pick up on it. I mentioned this in the last post, but if you all understood the logistics, I wouldn't have even had the opportunity. Finally, she basically told me to go to therapy, not to date for a few months while going, and to focus on healing myself. She assured me, with Tom in the room, that overall I was a wonderful man who would make someone very happy because I had more positive traits than negative ones. However, she said that I had some growing up to do before that time, so I wouldn't repeat the same mistakes I made with her. Though she reiterated that our divorce was a two-way street, she also acknowledged that she had a lot of growing up to do at that time. Last weekend, to cap it off, we had an ex-family meeting. This was done in person at MIL and Phil's house. It was really nice to see them, and they were very welcoming. Although Phil pulled me aside, shook his head, and said, "Why in the hell did you think it was a good idea to get the opinions of a bunch of idiots on the internet?" While I understood his point, I'll defend you guys. You all were very helpful. It was me, Julia, Tom, Riley, and Mill, and FIL. I'll save some time and space partially because I'm sick of typing, but also because most of what we talked about I already covered. The biggest revelation here is that Mill confessed that part of this might have been her fault. She said that she loved Tom and was excited for him to be in the family, but in the interim between our divorce and Julia and Tom getting serious, Mill would sometimes bring up to Riley that it was a shame OP and Julia couldn't work it out, and say things like, "He was such a nice man, I hope he is doing okay." She said that while she never told Riley to try to date me or even hinted at it, looking back, she might have signaled to Riley that she and FIL would love to have OP back in the family. She said she never meant any harm by it, but she probably should have let me go instead of bringing me up in those contexts, no matter how well-meaning they were. Phil then said that he remembered telling Riley years ago as a joke that he was sad he was going to lose his fishing buddy, and he said maybe he should have done the same and not said anything. Riley, for her part, said that she did feel that Mill and Phil would be excited for her to date me, but she apologized to Julia because she felt that she was only thinking about herself and her parents. She admitted it was inexcusable how little she considered her sister. She said that she foolishly thought Julia would be over it, and how insensitive and dismissive that feeling was. I opened up to all of them and said that I was guilty of the same. I should have been much more in tune with the potential blowback than I was. I should have known what a bad idea it was from the start, but I had a bunch of baggage I wasn't even aware of. I also apologized for the Reddit post and said that had I just gone to therapy to share it there, I could have saved all of us a lot of pain. By the end, we all hugged. I even hugged Tom, poor Tom. Phil, in his jolly old way, said, "Well, I have 2 daughters I couldn't be more proud of. I'm excited to welcome a wonderful son-in-law to the family, and OP, you're going to make someone a great husband someday." Julia even pulled me aside later and said, "If you ever want to go fishing with my dad, I'm okay with that. He could really use his fishing buddy back." I know it's a corny ending, but damn it, that almost brought a tear to my eye. I didn't ask him there, but I am going to keep it on the back burner. This is going to be it. I'm so done with this. I learned a lot about myself and I need a lot of therapy. Riley and I will be friendly if we see each other, but we won't be dating. I might go fishing with Phil sometime, but I'm going to wait until this all dies down. I wish Julia and Tom the best. While I have no pretenses about being invited to their wedding, we ended on good terms and I got a lot of closure. I really do hope they have a happy and healthy life. I also know that one day I'll find the right person too. It just won't be from that family. This next post was made in the same subreddit by a throwaway account. The post is titled, "The guy that I am dating is learning ASL for my brother, but my friends think it's creepy. I met John in a college class last semester. He's an overall great guy, very respectful and kind. He also has a great sense of humor and we have lots of similar interests. We've been friends since then and started dating this July. He's the first person I've ever dated in my life. Last September, he met my family when I visited home for my brother's birthday. My brother has been deaf since birth, so my whole family communicates with him either through sign language, Trev's lip reading, or through text. During our small celebration at home, it was clear that my parents liked John. He was very charming, funny, and respectful. He even tried to connect with Trev by typing some of his jokes for Trev to read. Whenever John would tell a story, either I or my parents would sign for Trev. My parents said they were happy that I found a sweet and caring guy in John. Of course, I'm glad to hear this. Before we went back, John and Trev had a quick Call of Duty gaming session. For someone with Trev's condition, he is a really talkative guy. He's very expressive and likes to communicate a lot, especially when gaming. Of course, he couldn't outright trash talk, but he does the closest thing with his hands. So there we were in Trev's room with John and Trev playing while I was translating for them. I was laughing way too hard because Trev was trying his best to trash talk John by saying he's weak and trying to say all these expletives while I was trying my best to tone it down for John. Meanwhile, I was also translating John's instructions and strategies for Trev. Also, because this was the first time John met my family, he was saying all these praises to Trev like good job or we can do it better next time. Although I know that deep down, he also wanted to trash talk my brother. The two of them got along pretty well and they've been having some online gaming sessions since then. 2 weeks ago, John visited home with me again for my mom's birthday. There, he surprised everyone by communicating with Trev through ASL. John was still at the alphabet stage along with some basic words and some rehearsed phrases, but we were all delighted that he even made the effort. Trev's face lit up and I've never seen him happier having a new long-term friend with low communication barriers. Apparently, John had been watching some YouTube tutorials and got a free subscription to Skillshare to learn ASL. The two of them had another gaming session again, and this time, John and Trev could communicate more directly. Of course, it was still kind of slow and I still had to do some translating, but I could tell Trev was having a great time. They also got more comfortable with each other with more explicit trash talking, which I didn't tone down this time. John has been religiously learning ASL since then, and he's making a lot of progress. I was so happy about this that I told my close friend group from high school. However, most of my friends, especially my closest guy friend, told me that what John was doing was a red flag, because it could be a form of obsession and emotional manipulation. He also said it was creepy because John is becoming too attached to my family when we've only been dating for about 5 months. He suggested that John might only be doing it so he could get laid or something. I know there's some validity to what my friend said, but I'm not really convinced. John has been a wonderful and sincere guy the entire time. And I know it's naive to say this because he's my first ever relationship, but I can see this becoming long term. Yes, we haven't hooked up yet because I told him I wasn't ready and he has never pressured me to do it. However, is his behavior something I should really be concerned about? Again, I don't have any experience with dating and relationships, so I don't know if this is something that's truly concerning. My friends are pushing for me to break up with John, but I'm not sure. How do I proceed with this? User Crystal Queen said, "Your friends are thieves of joy. A guy who likes you is going out of his way to learn how to communicate with your brother. That's adorable. Don't let your friends shit on it." User Janet in Spain said, "You need better friends. Your friends are the ones who are creepy, reading so much dark intent into what is actually a very kind, thoughtful, and respectful gesture on your boyfriend's part. How do you proceed? Dump the loser friends." After reading a lot of the responses here, I'm now reevaluating my relationship with my friends. This isn't the first time they've given negative feedback on a guy I liked. User Craig Hack said, "Your friends are wrong. He did this as a surprise for you and your family, which was a wonderful gesture. If anything, I would be more concerned about your so-called friends who think like this because it says more about them than about John. They are either jealous of your relationship or bad people themselves since they automatically assume he is doing it to manipulate you or for some other negative reason. So no, this is not a bad sign. It is a sign that your boyfriend is more mature than his age would suggest. Keep him around and let the relationship grow at a pace that you feel comfortable with. And if you feel like it, give him an extra hug from an internet stranger tonight for what he did."